Let's make this low sugar mixed berry jam from frozen berries. Thanks for joining me at Buttercup and Fern Homestead. Today is my first video of the March canning madness. Constance from Cosmopolitan Cornbread has been doing a curated March canning madness series for a couple of years. I don't know if she did it last year or not, but this year, 2024, it's an open collaboration and I'm going to make some canning products through the month of March and take you along with me. The recipe I'm using today is from Pomona's Pectin, and it uses 1.5 cups of sugar to 5 cups of fruit. If I was going to use Certo, it would use 7 cups of sugar and 7 cups of fruit. So this is definitely much weaker on the sugar. It does require a different step that the Certo Pectin doesn't require. This is a calcium powder and the pectin are separate. So you take the calcium powder and you mix 1/2 teaspoon of calcium powder with 1/2 cup of water. So you give that a shake and you set that aside until you need it. Now you have calcium water. I've taken my fruit out ahead of time. I have a variety of berries here. Some are frozen from the grocery store, blueberry, strawberry, and raspberry mix, as well as some large blackberries. And I also have in some wild blackberries that I had in the freezer. I've had this sitting on the stove in this bowl, not turned on, just on the stove top, because the metal of the bowl of the stove top disperses the cold and brings warmth back in. It just defrosts things faster that way. So this is only halfway defrosted, but that's good enough for us to start this. I have 5 cups of fruit here, and I'm going to put that right into the pot, and it's a heavy bottom large pot. I'm going to go through the other steps before I start cooking anything. I have 1.5 cups of sugar here. I need 2.5 to 2 3/4 teaspoons of pectin, depending on how thick you want this to be. I'm going to make mine 2.5, and you mix your sugar and pectin together. The pectin has a tendency to clump as soon as it hits the liquid, so by mixing it with the sugar, it's dispersing it more evenly. You're less likely to get clumps. So just mix that up together evenly. So I'm going to take these berries now and I'm going to mash them. I'm just using a potato masher, and if you want to have some chunks that are a little larger than other chunks, then don't mash it quite so much. If you want it just to be a fruit puree, you can put it through a blender or through a food processor. I'm basically just smashing up my strawberries. Of course you can do this with fresh fruit as well. Mashing wouldn't be quite so difficult, and you could cut your pieces smaller to start with. So there I have 5 cups of mashed fruit, and I need 5 tablespoons of bottled lemon juice. I also need to put my calcium water in there. This part's easy. 5 cups of mashed fruit, 5 tablespoons of lemon juice, and 5 teaspoons of calcium water. I want to bring this to a boil. I'll be back when we get there. I forgot to mention another step of prep work I've done. I have my canner there with water in it, starting to get warm. I have my lids in boiling water, prepping for a good seal, and I have my jars in the sink in hot water. There have been recent changes to the having to sterilize and boil your jars that we've done for years and years and years, and it actually saves a step. You've got your jars clean. Your jars have to be clean. Jars and rings and lids all have to be clean. That's a given. And in some cases, if you're putting hot products in them, you have to have the jars hot, you have to have your water hot. If you're putting cold product in it, you have your cold jars, your cold product, your cold canner. But if you are processing for more than 10 minutes, either pressure canning or water bath canning, you no longer have to sterilize your jars. And I'm good with that. That was a tedious process that I really didn't like to do. So I brought the fruit to a full boil. Now I can add in my sugar and pectin mix, and I have to stir that vigorously for 1 to 2 minutes until everything dissolves and comes back to a boil. So this should knock down that boil. I'm doing it in stages like this, pouring the sugar in slowly so it doesn't have as much chance to clump. Now I just have to stir that vigorously for 1 to 2 minutes and watch for that to come back to a boil. Okay, we've got this back to a boil. I'm going to let that boil hard for 1 minute and I'm going to keep stirring. Okay, as soon as that has boiled for 1 minute, you take it off of the heat. And if you like, you can skim the bubbles off the top, the foam. This doesn't seem to have very much foam in it, so I'm not really concerned. It's spittering and splattering though. Now I'm just going to fill my jars. I got this recipe from the Pomona's website, and it says that it yields 7 cups. Considering we started with only 5 cups of berries, I'm not expecting 7 cups of jam out of this. All right, we want to fill these jars with a 1/4 inch headspace, so that's not much at all. That's almost to the top. That will be to this top rim of the threads. Yeah, there is no way I'm getting 7 out of this. I'm barely getting 4. I might have enough for 1 more cup. It's definitely going to set. It's already setting on the outside of the measuring cup. I'm happy with this. I can really smell the blueberries. We definitely want to wipe the rims on these jars because there is jam on the rims. And a lid and a ring, and as usual, it's hot. And as always, fingertip tight. There is no way that would have made 7 cups of, oh, this one's all over the outside. There we go. There's no way this was going to make 7 cups of jam. But that's okay. I have more fruit in the freezer. I can make another batch later. We're not huge jam and jelly eaters in this house, but I do have a diabetic son who doesn't live here. And when he comes to visit, or when I send a care package home with him, I can send home a batch of low sugar jam for him to enjoy. I'm going to leave that, and if it doesn't seal, that just means I have to eat it sooner. If it doesn't seal, I'll put it in the fridge and consume that. I have this great big canner on the stove. It's got to be 14 inches across. That's going to be way too big for 4 little jars of jam. Let me see what else I can do. I have my stock pot, my soup pot, and it is much smaller than this other one. I'm going to transfer the water into this pot. You want enough water to cover the jars with 1 inch over their lids. I have an empty jar here, and this water's not boiling yet. Apparently I need a little bit more water. Ideally, you should have some kind of rack in the bottom of your canning pot so the jars are not on the bottom. You can use a long twist of tin foil, coiled, to make a bottom. I have this stainless steel rack from my cast iron set, my Dutch oven, and this fits perfectly, but I've turned it upside down so that it doesn't raise it up so high. Now let's get those jars in there. Well, this jar is only partly filled, but I'll put it in there to balance out the canner. Look at that, it's going to float. There's no sense in even trying to can that. We'll eat this one fresh. Okay, so now I put a lid on that, and I'm going to let that come to a boil, and then we'll boil it hard for 10 minutes. While that pot is boiling hard, I've set up my towel to receive the hot jars when they come out, and I'm about to tidy up the other parts of this project. The Pomona's pectin comes in a little box. This was $15, but I'm sure you can get it cheaper if you buy it somewhere other than Amazon.ca. It had 2 pouches in it. There is still product in both pouches, so I'm going to fold that down and make sure they're sealed. One is your calcium powder and one is your pectin. I'm going to pop those into the box, and then it came with a bunch of recipes too. Then I'm going to seal that up, and I'm going to put that into a plastic baggie to make it airtight. And then it can go back in my pantry until I make another batch. Right now, there's all kinds of citrus fruits on special, so I might have another project in a few days. There we go. It expires in July, so I'd like to use it up while it's still good. I think I might have to do something with that citrus fruit. Your calcium water, since it's in a sealed jar, it can be kept in the fridge. Okay, my timer has gone off and we are done. This has been 10 minutes. The jars are still remaining upright even though it wasn't fully packed in there. I could have put in a jar for just canning water, but these jars are pretty small and putting in a 1-cup jar for water wouldn't really be worth it. It's very dark. The blueberries colored it beautifully. I can't wait to try it. That is so good. A big chunk of blueberry in my jam.